Hey everybody, welcome back. Another episode of Video Game Collectors on Call. Last episode I had someone that I considered a kind of a Mario fan or Mario expert, so we could talk about Mario. And today I have a guest who I consider to be an expert on Zelda and all things Zelda. Please welcome to the show Supertendo. How's it going, man?
Hey man, great to be here. I'm happy and excited to discuss about all things Zelda. So glad to be
Yeah,
here.
no, I'm glad you could make it. So, one thing I like to start with by asking some of my people I have on the show is when did you start your interest and love for video games? Is there a time you remember, or has it just been all your
Oh
life?
yeah, most definitely. Not that I know I was 5 and then my parents had an NES or Nintendo Entertainment System, and the very first game I played was Super Mario Bros. On NES. I think I was like 5 in like 1990, I think. And then that was it. That's all it took for me. And then I was so captivated by like the way he moves, the way he jumped, all of the secrets. I don't know. It was a very captivating moment for me, and then like that was essentially my gateway to games today.
So it wasn't Zelda as your first game,
No,
surprisingly.
yeah,
So
Mario.
when did Zelda come into play where you just fell in love with Zelda?
So it's funny, like when I was a kid, I didn't really like Zelda that much. I would see it everywhere. So we went to Blockbuster all the time, and then I used to see like the cartridges for like Zelda One and Zelda Two like on the shelves, and I'm like, what the heck is this? And then when you're a kid, you're kind of used to just playing like a certain kind of game, like a side scroll or whatever. So stuff like adventure games and role playing games, they didn't really appeal to me back then. I had a friend who played nothing but RPGs on the Super Nintendo, like Final Fantasy, Secret of Mana, that kind of thing. And then he had a Link to the Past, which is this game right here, where this is like a large cartridge version
Oh
of
yeah,
it.
yeah, that's not fitting in any Super Nintendo.
Most definitely not. But this game specifically, well, the one that you can actually play, he let me borrow it, and then I played it. I'm like, well, this game's amazing. It was new to me. It was like a gateway to like something that was completely unexperienced before. And I would like ask my parents like, so like my bedtime was like 8 o'clock on school nights, and then I would ask my parents if I could stay up like until like 9 o'clock to play. Like I was really like hooked on it, and
Yeah.
I would wake up early before school and like play it before school, and yeah, like I was hooked. And then I think I was stuck a couple of times. I would ask him, I would ask my mom like for help or whatever, but I think I was like 8 or 9 at the time. And Link to the Past was like my like premium like Zelda game that got me into the series for like ever. So
So at that point, is that when you would say, even when you were a child, you started collecting games and you still have some today from your childhood? Or was there a later point in your life where you started collecting?
so ironically, when I was a kid, I wasn't really into video games as much. Like it was a thing, you know. I was always excited, for like the next new release. Reading stuff like Nintendo Power Magazine, for example. Being like this game's coming out, but like when I was a kid, like my interests were like cartoons, video games, Legos. I was a huge fan of like the Archie Comics, Sonic the Hedgehog series. I used to read those all the time. So video games like were like a big part of my childhood, but it was almost like a quarter of it, if you get what I'm saying. But
Yeah.
I think it's more so the nostalgia as an adult that makes me be like, man, those really were good times.
Right. Yeah. Would you say, like right now, your main focus is just collecting Zelda stuff, or are you kind of collecting all kinds of things in terms of games?
So like I focus on Nintendo, but I do have stuff from like Sonic. I have a bunch of Mega Man stuff from Capcom, Square. I have a collection of like Marvel comics. So I collect a whole lot of stuff. But I think recently I've been more focused on Zelda because for some reason on social media and everywhere, like people love Zelda, and even
Right.
in my
Yeah, they do.
job, like people know me as like the Nintendo guy. People know me as the Zelda guy. And then like
Oh, yeah.
I don't know if you see me recently. I got the Wind Waker hoodie, and people in my job, they all love it. They're like, oh yeah, like it's so vibrant and so you like. I'm like, wow, like it's a completely like unexpected response from people. Because when you wear things that are not normal per se, people look at you funny.
Yeah.
But me,
Right.
I feel like as long as you are your authentic self and whatnot, like people will always respect you, for who you are. But
No, that makes sense.
but the Zelda stuff I've been collecting a lot more lately because I think Zelda stuff is a lot more involved. And
There's
Not
a lot of it.
yeah, and the merchandising for Zelda is like all over the place. I mean, you got
Yeah,
Zelda cups, Zelda mugs, Zelda bed sheets,
right.
Zelda jackets, Zelda shirts.
It's almost as much as like the Mario stuff, you know. It's like you have Mario, but then you also have Zelda in a close second as maybe the Nintendo mascot, I guess you could say.
But then it's funny because it's like the Triforce is more, I wouldn't say recognizable, but the Triforce leans on more conversation starters than like a Mario shirt. And
That's true.
I've done it,
Yeah,
like I've experienced it before. Like I'll wear like a Mario shirt and people are like, yeah, that's cool. But if I wear like a Zelda shirt, oh my god, oh yo, I love Zelda. Like I love Ocarina of Time. I love Twilight Princess. I love Wind Waker. And then it just opens up this whole flood of conversation from people that you don't even know, complete strangers. And I've met a lot of people like that in public where like, oh man, like I love that Zelda sweater. I love that Zelda hoodie. I love that Zelda blah blah blah. Like any mention of Zelda just gets people like amped up, like to like the nth degree. And I kid you not.
that's true.
And it's just funny because it's like I never knew how impactful that franchise was until like literally like recently.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah, like you, I didn't grow up playing it, and you know I had the games, and I played maybe a couple of them, but I never played them to completion. And I certainly don't have every Zelda game there is, but it's definitely very popular among my friends, even. So
and I feel like I don't gatekeep when it comes to any hobby, any passion. And it doesn't matter, in my opinion, like what game you start out with. As long as you appreciate the franchise, man, we are cool.
yeah,
People are
yeah,
like,
no,
oh
for
yeah,
sure.
my first Zelda game was Breath of the Wild. Cool. I appreciate that. My first game was Ocarina of Time. Cool. I like that. My first Zelda game was The Wind Waker. Cool. I like that. As long as you appreciate the game and the franchise for what it is, hey man, I could care
Yeah,
less for what game you start out
right.
with.
No, that's fair. I want to talk a little bit just for people who might not be familiar with Zelda. I assume 95% of the people watching this are, but in case they're not, I want to talk a little bit about if you know, let me know. But I did do some research before we got on here about how Zelda originated, like why it was created, what it's modeled after. Do you know some of that information?
My God, of course. I so
Give me a cliff notes, you know?
Okay, so if I can narrow it down, so Zelda was created by Shigeru Miyamoto, which is the same guy who created Mario, Donkey Kong, Pikmin, and Star Fox. And his whole deal was that I think when he was a child, he had liked to explore caves and whatever in like Japan, like the countryside of Japan, and then he wanted to create a game that was almost like a miniature garden, like a miniature like little adventure. And he took inspiration from like the caves he used to explore as a kid, the forest and that kind of thing, and he wanted to kind of like condense that into like an adventure. Mind you, this was the first time they've ever done it, and apparently in an interview they weren't really confident about the direction the game was going to go in. At the time, in the 80s, games were really simple. It was either left or right, up and down, Space Invaders, Galaga, Pac-Man, Defender, Centipede, Millipede, all of those classic retro stuff, even the Pong, for example. When you develop a game with like a top-down camera perspective and you can move in four different directions, at the time in 1986, people were like, whoa, like this is new. Because we're used to going left and right. So I believe Mr. Miyamoto, he used to draw his sketches in a book because he was actually an artist before he was hired by Nintendo to develop games. And then his idea was envisioned by saying, okay, we want to make the player go on an adventure that's reminiscent of my childhood when I used to, explore caves and forests and whatnot.
Yeah.
And
Yeah, no, that's what I read as well. I mean, that's very similar to the things that I have heard. I also read there's a lot of influence that he took from like Peter Pan and
oh yeah, most
Tinkerbell in terms
definitely.
of
Oh
the
yeah,
yeah,
the
yeah,
bright green is definitely an
yeah.
obvious indicator that he was inspired by Peter Pan.
And then the name Zelda apparently comes from an author, Zelda
Hmm.
Fitzgerald, and I don't know how she was connected to Miyamoto, or maybe he just one of his favorite authors or
Right.
something, or
And
yeah,
even rest in peace to the late Robin Williams, but he even named his daughter
hmm,
after the franchise,
correct,
which is
correct,
crazy.
yeah,
And he even confirmed in an interview. So people had thought that he had named his daughter after like I said, the author, he was like, no, I really love the Zelda franchise. And then I named my daughter after the game, after the princess. They even did a
Yeah.
few marketing commercials together, him and his daughter, for I think Majora's Mask, the
Oh
3D
wow.
version, before he unfortunately, that incident happened. So
No, that's yeah. Zelda's like everywhere. So
yeah, most definitely.
let's talk a little bit about the lore of Zelda. So you play. I think probably in every game you play as Link, right?
Just about.
Yeah. And so essentially the whole object is to get the Triforce and basically stop Ganon, who is the main villain of
Right.
the series, from getting the Triforce, correct?
Right.
So tell me about the Triforce. Like why do we want the Triforce?
So the Triforce was created by three deities named Din, Nehru, and Fairy. They're basically like the three goddesses. They shaped the world of Hyrule, and then once they were finished creating the world, they left that sacred relic behind, which is the Triforce, which is basically which is divided up into three pieces: power, courage, and wisdom. And the whole gist of it is that think of like the Triforce as almost like a I'm not gonna go too far into it, but almost like I wouldn't say like a religious kind of thing, but something that the people can look up to. You know what I'm saying? Kind of in that regard. And basically, whomever touches the Triforce has all of their wishes granted. Be it whatever it may be. Power, corruption, peace, prosperity, whatever. And so the Triforce lies in this area called the Sacred Realm, which is kind of like this omni-dimensional plane of existence, I guess.
Okay. Okay.
They make this stuff up as they go, and
As they go. Yeah,
and
sure.
then
Right, right,
it's
right.
just like, okay, like, so in the first Zelda, apparently it's just the Triforce of power, and I think Zelda 2 is like the Triforce of wisdom or something. I don't know, but Ocarina of Time kind of like solidifies that whole lore, and they kind of condense it into like this one thing. But yeah,
Gotcha.
but it's just basically think like a magic lamp. You know how you rub a lamp, a genie
Right.
comes out. You got
Get a
three
wish.
wishes. Well, in this case, this lamp only has one wish.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And that's why Ganon wants it essentially, so he can, kind of take over Hyrule and put it under his reign.
So Ganon's whole thing is interesting because he's part of this tribe, this race of people called the Gerudo, which are people that live in the desert. And apparently, there's one Gerudo male born every 100 years. So he's the only male Gerudo because usually the whole race of people are typically they're all female. Now, he craves power, but he craves power because he feels as though that his people have been oppressed by the citizens of Hyrule. And it's interesting because Ganon isn't not at all a one-dimensional villain. He has motives that really make a lot of sense. Now, I don't agree with said motives, so don't get me wrong. But in Wind Waker, he really touches down upon how his people lived in the desert and they have literally nothing. They have no resources. They have no.
Hmm.
There's no prosperity in the desert. It's almost like he feels as though that his people have been outcasted in a sense. So he
So he's not
wants.
a
Oh, go ahead.
he's not a completely bad guy. It sounds like.
I mean, he is, but he's a bad guy that actually
Yeah.
has like almost a sympathetic side to him.
Yeah. Okay.
Which is why if you read about Ganondorf and Wind Waker, a lot of people that's actually a lot of people's favorite Ganondorf because he actually has emotion. He's not just like
Hmm.
this, this
Okay.
tyrannical guy. I want power. Like Ocarina of Time, that's basically his whole thing. In Ocarina of Time, he swore allegiance to the King of Hyrule just to take over, and that was like his whole thing. He followed Link the whole time, like throughout the whole game, and the dude he just wanted complete control and power. Whereas in Wind Waker, it's more like, okay, well, my people are suffering, and I want to change that. But the way he goes about it in the almost kind of like corrupt kind of way.
Hmm. Yeah. No, that makes sense.
And then also Link stabs him in the head and turns him into stone and leaves him for dead.
Wow. Yeah. That would. Yeah. Well, that's a great kind of overview of all the lore and definitely some stuff that I didn't know about Zelda or the Zelda franchise. Have you? So in terms of the games, So there's probably, am I incorrect in saying there's a Zelda game for every system that Nintendo has made?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so you start out with what, two games on the NES, right?
Uh-huh.
And then how many on Super Nintendo? Just the one?
So,
Were
so
more
there's
than one?
actually two. Um, so this is a deep cut, but you have to really be in the know to know about this. But in the 90s in Japan, Nintendo and Bandai used to have this almost like this internet type of system called the satellite view. And on the
Yep,
satellite
I've heard of
view,
that.
they had a sequel to A Link to the Past. Not really a sequel, but it was almost like a pseudo sequel in a sense. And I think it was called it's called a BS Zelda something or another. And then as you play, there's actually like a live narrator that talks as you play, which is interesting. I don't know if you've heard of this game called Bastion. It's an indie game that came out in like the early 2010s. But as you play Bastion, there's a narrator that literally says everything that you do. That makes you play. It's like a top-down isometric like action game. In the
Okay, so
BS,
very similar.
yeah. So in the BS Zelda game for the SNES, you have a narrator that's actually talking, as you play. Of course, it was Japan only. We didn't get it, of course. Yeah.
Right, right.
So I think there was,
That's cool.
I think there were two of those, I believe,
Okay.
if not just one. But A Link to the Past is definitely the main one. So technically, if we're talking in the world, if we're talking in an international sense, just one game. So yeah, so Link to the Past.
And then you have Nintendo 64, which has Ocarina, right?
Uh-huh.
You have Majora's Mask. Is there another one I'm missing?
I guess you can kind of count the Master Quest version of Ocarina.
Okay.
I mean, I wouldn't really say that's a full game, but it was originally supposed to be for the 64 disk drive, but it got canceled. So they put the Master Quest version on like the GameCube compilation pack like many years later.
Oh, right. Yeah, yeah, there's several on GameCube, right?
Uh-huh.
Several games. I know one of which is the Four Swords, right?
Yeah,
And that's a cooperative four-player
Four
game,
Swords
right?
Adventures, Twilight
Yeah.
Princess, and
Uh-huh.
Wind Waker. And then
Are all on GameCube.
the two bonus discs. The first one is Ocarina and the Master Quest, and then the other one is it's Zelda One, Zelda Two, Ocarina, and Majora's Mask. It was like a promotional disc that they were giving out for free if you bought a GameCube back in like what 2008, I think. Yeah,
Gotcha. And then Wii has probably a couple. So this is the extent of my knowledge on Zelda. Once we
gotcha.
get past GameCube, I don't have any idea what the games are. So
Yeah,
Wii has a couple, I assume.
yeah. So we have Twilight Princess was originally a GameCube game, but it became a launch title for the Wii. And then you have Skyward Sword.
Okay. And then after Wii, let's see, we have like Wii U.
Yeah,
Any new titles come out on the Wii U?
just Breath of the Wild.
Breath of the Wild.
Yeah,
Okay. And then we go to Switch, which has which
jeez.
ones are on Switch?
Breath of the Wild, Link's Awakening remake, Tears of the Kingdom, and the newest Echoes of Wisdom.
Echoes of Wisdom is the newest one.
Yeah,
And when did that come out?
it came out last September. Yeah,
Okay.
last year.
Are all of these Zelda games interconnected story wise, or are some separate?
So it is. I'm sorry, they are, and also they aren't. There are a lot of Easter eggs that make you be like, that looks familiar, or that sounds familiar. But timeline wise, they are connected. So yes and no.
So I guess my question is Echoes of Wisdom, right? So my worry is I'm going to pick that game up and play it, but not understand some of what's going on. Is that going to be the case, or can I play it without having played some of the previous games?
So Echoes of Wisdom is very much self-contained. It does have major references to A Link to the Past because it actually shares the same map as the Super Nintendo game, but just much more expanded. So it's one of those things where it's like, okay, yeah, I know that, but you don't really have to know it. It's just there just to kind of like tickle your fancy, like you don't have to know about it, but it's like, oh yeah, well this looks familiar or that sounds familiar, but you don't have to really know anything about the previous games before that.
Have you played all of these games we just talked about?
But yes.
Have you beat all of these games we talked about for every
Um,
system?
so the only ones that I haven't beaten were just Breath of the Wild, Echoes of Wisdom, and Tears of the Kingdom. Breath of the Wild
Okay.
because I got burnt out by the game because it was so massive at the time. Tears of the Kingdom,
Yeah.
burnt out, 200 hours. And I'm like, man, okay, I need to take a break. And Echoes of Wisdom, I've been playing it here and there, but life and stuff like that's been kind of like taking a toll. So I'm just, I'm pacing myself with that game. But they're all great games. It's just that I don't know. I kind of feel like when I reach the end of a game, I don't really want it to end. So I kind of
Yeah.
just like maybe just
Put it
like
off. So you don't want to beat it too
yeah,
soon. Yeah.
just kind of just like draw it out as long as possible.
Right. Right. What would you say? So in collecting, there's all there's rare games, and every game has like a maybe people have their Holy Grail they talk about and stuff. Is there any rare Zelda games that maybe it's like a collector's edition or something? What would you say to that?
So I think so. The biggest treasure I have that in my collection is not actually a game, but it's actually a system, which is the Hylian Shield new Nintendo 2DS. I mean, it's just your regular like 2DS or whatever. But this baby is like my treasure. I will never let this one go.
Okay.
It goes for like I think like $1,000 like for some reason.
Did when did they make that? How long ago did they make that?
Um, that was like in 2000, I believe, 18.
Okay,
And I only
not
knew
too long
about it
ago.
because there was an article about it, and then it was only like 160. And I went to the GameStop near me and I reserved it, and the guy called. He was like, "Hey man, your thing's in." Like, cool, I bought it, and then after that, it was gone.
Hmm.
Like, and when I
Wow.
checked the value of it, I was like, "Holy moly!"
Yeah, yeah, that's kind of stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Do you have a favorite Zelda game?
oh yeah, Link to the Past, hands down,
Link to the Past, 100%.
hands down.
Okay. What about least? What about least?
Skyward Sword, hands down.
Really?
Yeah,
Why is that?
it was hyped up like a lot, and there were like a lot of things that I was looking forward to that just didn't happen, and they really touched down on the whole. Oh, this game is going to be the beginning of the whole timeline. It's going to explain everything. It really did none of that. It did it, but it was very vague. It wasn't like an intricate elaboration. It was just like, oh yeah, well that happened, and here we are. Also the motion controls. Oh my god, were just like they weren't bad. I just felt like, yeah, I'm not really feeling this.
Could use, yeah, use some work. Definitely some, if you can't, vibe with the controls, it definitely makes for a long, tiring experience when playing a game. So you showed the handheld you had. Do you have any other cool Zelda stuff that you can show us that's not maybe a video game?
Oh yeah, this is something I just picked up recently. This is actually a backpack in the
Oh,
shape
and it's shaped like the game. Yeah,
like the cartridge, yeah, which is pretty neat. So this is the front of it,
that's cool.
and this is the back of it. And I don't know if you can tell,
Okay.
but the Triforce is actually etched
Oh yeah,
onto it, which I don't know. Like I said,
that's cool.
here, which is pretty neat. So yeah, this is definitely one of my
Yeah, yeah.
favorite things that I have. Sorry that my headphone came out.
No, you're good. You're good. So Zelda is also, or Link, I should say, is also in a bunch of other games. Well, the one that comes to mind is Smash Brothers. He's a character in. When you play that game, do you choose Link?
So in the most recent Smash, in Smash Ultimate, there's actually three Links. You have regular Link, you have Toon Link, and you have Young Link, which is Link as a child from the Ocarina of Majora's game. Coincidentally, per your question, I was actually playing Smash last night online, and I was actually playing as Toon Link, and
Okay.
they're fun to play as. Do I play as them all the time? No, not really. But I do know like their move set and everything. But
Sure. Yeah.
I actually like my favorite characters are like Jigglypuff, Dr. Mario, Mr. Game and Watch. But Link and his different forms are definitely really fun to play as in Smash.
Am I missing any other games that Link is in? Like maybe there's a compilation
But
of?
yeah, I mean, yeah, how could you forget the Mario Kart? Because he's in Mario Kart
Right,
8.
right. Mario
Mario
Kart.
Kart 8.
Yep, yep,
And
yep.
he is also in right back. Where is it? Of course, he's in Soul Calibur too.
He's oh okay. Yep. I'm not familiar with the Soul Calibur series, so that's a new one on me. But yeah,
Yeah, Soul Calibur is essentially Tekken with weapons.
like a fighting
Yeah,
game, right?
yeah,
Yeah. And so is he a playable character from the start, or you have to unlock him
from the start.
from the start? All right, very cool, very
And I
cool.
don't know if you
Uh,
can see he's also
they
on the
on the
instruction
manual.
manual.
Okay, very cool. Is he not in Soul Calibur 1?
No, he's only in the second one.
Interesting.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah. So when Soul Calibur 2 was announced, it was on the PS2, the GameCube, and the Xbox. So all
Okay.
three versions had their own exclusive characters. GameCube had a Link. PS2 had Hayachi from the Tekken series, and Xbox had, of all characters, Spawn.
Wow.
Yeah,
Okay. So I think we mentioned early on there was a Zelda show too, right? So
yeah.
did you watch that? Did you like that? What did you think of the Zelda show?
Well, excuse me, princess.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, no, I didn't watch it. And
Okay.
but I know of it.
I've never seen it. I've never seen it. I know it exists though.
It came on. There was a cartoon called Captain N, the Game Master. It was the kid that had like the jacket with the little N on it, and he had like a zapper. So it was like Captain N, a Super Mario Brothers Super Show, and Legend of Zelda. But the Zelda cartoon was like really campy because Zelda was more of a hero than Link was. Link was just like the annoying sidekick. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. Do you think that we'll ever have a Zelda movie?
So it's been confirmed actually. Last year they're making a live action Zelda movie. Mr. Miyamoto is involved on the project. I forgot who he got to direct, but apparently he wants to implement like. Are you familiar with movies like what's his name? Like Spirited Away and that kind of thing.
I've heard of that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
That's more like animated, right?
so he wants to implement
Yeah.
those kind of vibes in like a live action setting. We don't have any details on casting or who's playing who or what
Okay.
direction they're going to go in. But if anything, it'll probably just be like a very simplified version of like one of the games. Because,
Yeah.
there's only so much you can do in like 180 minutes of runtime.
Right. Who would you? And this might be a tough question. Who would you want to see play Link in a movie? Do you have a thought?
If it's an adult, people always said
Yeah.
Orlando Bloom. It should be Link.
Okay.
He played
Okay.
what's his name, Legolas. Is it am I saying it wrong? Is it Legolas?
I think it's
Yeah,
Legolas. Yeah.
Legolas from Lord of the Rings. And then when he was casted, people were like, oh my god, look, it's Link. I'm like, yeah.
Okay.
Now I don't know if he's too old to do that now, but it depends on what direction they're going to go in. If they're going to have like a child Link or an
Sure.
adult Link. I'm not really familiar with a lot of child actors these days.
Right.
A
Right.
lot of
Yeah.
my favorite child actors are all adults now. So like Jonathan Taylor
Exactly.
Thomas.
Yeah.
What's the name of the kid from
Macaulay Culkin
not
from Home
Macaulay
Alone.
Culkin, the kid from um what is his name from the
What
Bruce Willis
movie?
movie? The I see Dead People. What's his name?
Well, yeah. 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 I know who you're talking about.
Yeah,
I suddenly can't remember his name either, but I
yeah,
do know who you're talking about. He's actually been in a few things as an adult too. A
yeah,
few movies that I've seen.
yeah. And then he also does he does the voice of Sora from Kingdom Hearts as well.
Okay.
Yeah,
Are there any games that you're looking forward to maybe being made or something that you want to see in a future game with Zelda?
I want them to like. I'm a fan of the open world. I'm a fan of the top down. I If they can just combine the two, like take like that massive overworld from Tears of the Kingdom and just kind of like make it more condensed and put actual real dungeons in it and stuff, I think it's perfect. I want to see a remake of Link to the Past in the style of like Link's Awakening and Echoes of Wisdom. I think that'd be fantastic.
I would love to see, and I know like the Four Swords we talked about was multiplayer, but I'm a big multiplayer guy. I like to play with friends or either co-op online or something. And if they made a Zelda game that was co-op that I could play with a friend, I'd 100% buy it and play it.
Oh yeah,
I think that would be yeah.
yeah. Four Swords Adventures, man, it was fun, but it was really expensive to play because you needed 4 Game Boy Advances to play that
Mm,
game. And then you needed
yeah,
the 4 Game Boy Advances and the 4 GameCube to Game Boy Advance link cables to play,
adapters.
which is at the time like it's a cool idea, but man, like who can afford all of that?
That's expensive. Yeah, for sure. Where do you get most of your Zelda stuff at? Do you go to GameStop? Do you have a retro store in town? Do you buy it online?
I mean, there's a few retro stores near me that I frequently. I'm actually friends with at one store. I get like my strategy guides there from there. Amazon, GameStop at times.
So, like the backpack you bought, for instance,
That
did you know did you know a backpack existed and you were trying to find it, or you just happened to stumble upon it while scrolling online one day?
So I actually had this backpack before, like years ago, but unfortunately it got messed up. So I was just feeling really nostalgic like last week. I said, you know what, I missed that backpack, and then I went on Poshmark actually, and I got this from Poshmark, and the person that
Okay.
was selling it was only selling it for about $25. And it's funny because on the listing it said he used, and then so I'm examining the pictures, make sure everything's legit. And then when it came last week, it was actually brand new, still in like the manufacturer's plastic.
Oh wow.
Yeah, so that was
Wow.
definitely like a deal. Even the tags were still on there. So I was like, okay, cool.
What do you do to find like good prices? So you mentioned that was $25, but maybe like with games or something, if you're going to buy a Zelda game, where do you find out if you're getting a good deal or not, or how do you know?
I price gauge everything. I check all of my sources. I check different websites. I compare prices. I don't just jump on something because I see it. I do my research and make sure that the offer that is being sold for it is fair, because there are people out there who do scalp and they do take advantage of
Yeah.
people that collect and like, oh, they'll pay for anything. No,
Yeah.
like,
Yeah.
and I definitely make sure that I'm paying a fair amount for the item that I want. Even
Is there
Sorry, go ahead.
No, you're good. No, visual aids are great.
Yeah,
No, grab. Yep. Definitely like to see things.
yeah,
If you're watching on Spotify, I recommend you watch on YouTube just because we do sometimes show things off.
yeah. So this is the hoodie that I picked up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I put it on. So this I got from eBay. And I actually,
Okay.
I messaged the guy and I said, hey, does this come from a smoke-free home? Because when people smoke, it gets in clothes.
Yeah.
So the guy was like,
Yeah.
um, there's a smoke-free home. I wore it once, and I'm like, cool. Thank you for replying. You got to sell. So I bought it right then and there. It came in an airtight plastic bag, very good condition. So yeah,
No, yeah, that's nice.
yeah.
Definitely a lot of cool Zelda stuff out there. Is there something, maybe it's a game or a collectible or anything like that that you're still looking for, Zelda wise?
One day I would like to obtain um, the Zelda. There's a Game and Watch LCD wristwatch. And it goes for like $200, man. I'd like to have it one day, but it's not in my budget. But that's more of a
Sure.
luxury item than anything.
That's still a pretty cool watch you have there.
Oh
Again, for
yeah,
you people who are watching on or listening on Spotify, you can't see his watch, but it's basically a Game Boy. That
yeah,
just the face is a whole Game Boy that looks like a watch. So
yeah. So I apologize. I should have
you're good.
because I had some stuff right here, but I'm like, man, I didn't want to go too in depth. But I know
No, you're
earlier
good.
we were talking about the Triforce. So this is actually a light. It actually projects the
Okay.
Triforce like on the wall, so you can see the
Oh, very
etching
cool.
right there. So
That's cool.
yeah, so this is the Triforce light. This is the another treasure that I have, the Zelda, the Game and Watch right here.
Game watch. Yeah.
Yeah, so you see right now it's playing so like Link's
Yep.
Awakening.
Yep.
Yeah, so and it's neat because
Very cool.
there's also on the back, it's pretty neat. You can see the little
Triforce.
and then actually it turns on and off, so it's on now. So now it's on.
Oh, yep. Yep. We saw that. Very cool.
So and the last thing,
What's
oh sorry,
Go ahead. Oh no, keep going. No. You got more stuff. That's
and
awesome.
this is the Tears of the Kingdom. This is like a still like photo thing or whatever. It came in like the collector's edition for Tears of the Kingdom, which is pretty neat.
Got you. No, that's pretty cool.
Okay,
That's awesome.
I,
You got
I, I'm
it?
done. I'm done.
No, please, as much as you want to show. What about your favorite console of all time? What would be your favorite console?
Ooh, all time. Now,
Yeah.
actually,
I think I would guess, well, I think you're going to say Super Nintendo since your name is Supertendo, but we'll see what you say. All right, that's what I thought.
because I was going to show off the mini one, but I forgot to
Yeah.
have the original one.
Yeah.
So, and
The mini one, that's the one that has, the mini one's the one that has like games on it, right?
yeah, Now, can I can
Yeah.
I can I show off my Zelda shelf by any chance?
Sure. Yeah,
Gotcha,
go for it. We got to
gotcha.
move the camera. Yep.
Yep.
Yeah.
So how do I?
This is the second. I don't think so. I tried this with someone before, and they were unable to flip the camera. If you could figure it out, by all means, do it. But you may have to just
Yeah. Okay.
kind of do like selfie mode, you know.
So
So much more Zelda items.
yeah, like I said, I so this is interesting right here. This chest. Like I said, I
Mm-hmm.
don't know how it looks when I'm doing this, so I'm trying my best to.
No, you're good.
So
I like that Ganon statue too.
oh yeah, the Ganondorf statue. Yeah. So this has the rupees in it, and then when you open it,
Yeah. Please make the sound. Yep.
so yeah, it's pretty neat stuff.
Now answer me this. So I keep saying Ganon, but you say Ganondorf. Is that the same person?
Yes. So
Okay.
Ganondorf. So also this is the I don't know if you can see this is the one from the Windmaker.
Oh yeah.
Um, and then also the one from Tears of the Kingdom,
Nice.
and of course you already saw the Ganon
Yep.
statue. So Ganondorf
Yep.
is his name, but so Ganon is his name when he's like in power, if that makes any
Mm.
sense. But typically,
Okay.
Ganon is like the name when he's like in his pig form. Because you've seen him in his pig
Okay.
form, right? He's like a giant boar.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
His most
Okay.
popular form is when he has like the cape and he has like the trident, whatever. Yeah, so but it's funny because not funny, but Ganon didn't have a human form until Ocarina of Time. So Ganondorf's introduction to Ocarina of Time was actually his first human appearance. And then it explains how when he has the Triforce of Power, he turns into what he feels like inside. So power equals greed, right? And then what kind of
Right.
animal is a resemblance of greed? Pigs.
Oh.
So that's the whole like
Okay.
analogy of that.
Interesting. Interesting. All right. What is your favorite game that is not Zelda? If you had to choose one.
It's not Zelda.
Not Zelda. Can't be Zelda. Zelda can't be in it. So not Soul Calibur 2, Super Mario Bros. 3. Yeah, absolutely. That's a great one. So 1, 2, and 3. I think there's often a debate which of those is the best, and I would go with 3. I think just the gameplay and style was much better, much different.
A lot of people say my argument I hear all the time is between 3 and World, and
I think World's pretty good. No, I do like World too. It's close, but I think 3 at the time for coming out on NES and
oh yeah,
what it was
it's
a
huge.
lot better in terms of what it could do. So are you well, do you have any advice, I guess, for people who want to get into collecting? Maybe they want to collect Zelda stuff, maybe they want to
Oh
collect
yeah,
Mario stuff, or
yeah.
just games in general.
Like I said, I don't gatekeep. I'm all about the positive and optimism of the community, of the hobby and the passion. I advocate very well for myself and for those who do want to indulge in such a thing. I would say be persistent. Patience is a virtue. Just because you see something that you want and it's expensive, just wait a while. You never know. There are a lot of things I have that I've seen for a ludicrous amount of money, and then I waited like a year or two, and then like, oh look, I got it for cheap. Um,
Hmm.
be passionate about it, but don't be an a hole to other people.
Right. Yeah.
Be as helpful and kind as you can. Support one another, and when you collect, you know, do it with passion and integrity.
Yeah.
I feel like when, like for example, Pokemon, for example, was one of the biggest things right now, and like I don't know if you've seen videos of people going to Costco and they're just like mowing down people for these cards and
Yeah.
like stuff like that really taints like
Just so they can resell it later. They're
yeah
getting it so that they can
yeah
hold on to it and then resell it, and
that
yeah.
that kind of behavior, like it really taints the community. Video game people are already seen as like not negative, but like all you do is sit at home and play games all day, and you don't do anything. It's a very like taboo kind of thing. I mean, it's a lot more
Right.
accepted now compared to how it was in the '90s. Thank you a lot, Mister Joseph Lieberman. Thank you a lot for your you know, but now it's more accepted.
Right.
Just if you collect stuff, just do it in a way where, like I said, you're cool about it, and just don't be mean about it. If that makes any
I
sense.
agree. And I think you're a good example. I don't know if you've done this intentionally, but I think when you get into collecting, there are a lot of things to choose from, right? You're like so many consoles, so many systems, so many games. And I always tell people to focus on something. And like, for example, Zelda, like you want to get all the Zelda games. So do that. Start with that so that you kind of narrow it down so you're not just, haphazardly buying every single game you see. It makes it. And that's what I did when I started, which was very overwhelming
Yeah,
at times.
yeah. Yeah, you definitely you want to just focus on one thing and then just gradually branch off to different things.
Right.
And then
Exactly.
once you feel comfortable in that particular hobby or group or topic or whatever you want to call it, then you move.
Yeah.
Then you keep going forward. Like people ask me all the time, man, oh man, how long have you been collecting? And how do you have so much stuff? I said, man, I've been doing this for years. Like
Right. Yeah.
all of this was not overnight. This was
Right.
years, like decades of
Yeah.
just gradually collecting things as I go, not all at the same time, but just as I go along. So
Exactly.
as long as you
Exactly.
have that foundation and that base where you can say, well, of course, always allocate your budget first. Your
Hmm.
priorities are definitely,
You got bills to
yeah,
pay and
exactly.
stuff.
Your
Yeah, yeah. Get
priorities,
those paid
yeah, your
first.
priorities
Yeah,
come first. We got family, take care of your family, but don't put your focus on collecting as a focal point. And I think a lot of people get blindsided by that because they're like, okay, well, I spent all my money on collectibles, but now I'm broke. And I'm
yeah,
like, okay, well, financial literacy is important, and make
yeah,
sure
yeah, yeah.
you budget accordingly to what you can and can't afford. And I think there's something here that I have that's really expensive, and I waited like a long time to get it, and then I got it for like really, really affordable. But like I said, I was patient. I'm like, okay, well, I don't need
Hmm.
this right now. Do I want it? Yes. Do I need it? No.
Yeah, patience is definitely another key. What social medias do you have that people can follow you on to kind of see more Zelda content, learn more about Zelda?
Just mainly just my Instagram page, and I'm on Threads, chatting it up on there. But that's really about it. I have a YouTube page, but it's kind of like defunct right now, so I don't really use it.
Okay.
It
Okay.
exists, but I haven't uploaded a YouTube video in like almost like 15 years. So,
Wow.
but
Okay.
Instagram is definitely where you'll find my content. In fact, that's where you and I met on Instagram.
Right. Right.
Happy
Right.
and happy to finally meet you in person. Happy to talk to you in
Yeah. Yeah.
person. You know,
No, glad to have you.
yeah, I'm happy to be here. I apologize for putting it off for a long time, but things kept coming up
No, no,
and
you're
stuff
good.
like that.
Yeah.
I don't want you to think like, oh man, every time I ask him, he's always got an excuse.
No, believe me or not, I've had a lot of things happen when asking people to be on the, people don't show up. People, are like, oh, sorry, I forgot. Let's reschedule for next week. And then they
Hmm.
forget again. Or people just don't respond to my messages that I send. So
Yeah.
it's okay.
Oh no, yeah, it's tough, man. And then like for me, and I want people to feel like and this is almost as sincere as I can get. I am a normal person just like you. And what happens is that when you have like a huge following on Instagram, right? People think, oh man, you're like a celebrity. He has all these followers. Like, I'm just a regular dude. like,
Yeah. Yeah,
like,
right. That wants to share his love of Zelda with the world,
yeah, I'm just a regular dude. Like, I've supported people. I've shared people's content and stuff like that. People are like, oh my god, Supertendo, he reposted me. I said, bro, I'm just a regular dude, man. Like, I'm just like
Yeah.
you, like, and I always encourage people who want to make it up, go for it. Don't let anything stop
Yeah.
you. You're always going to have that hill to climb, right? But you're always going to have people that support you silently. Just because someone doesn't like or comment, that doesn't mean no one's watching. People are always watching.
Correct.
And when it comes to social media, people are, oh man, this post ain't getting enough likes, this post ain't getting enough comments, bro. Just keep going. Just don't
Yeah.
stop. Just keep going. I'm telling you, man. Do it. When it comes to sharing your passion, when it comes to making YouTube, your podcast, for example, just keep going. Do not stop. As long as you have ultimately 100% good intentions, just keep going.
Yeah, I agree with that. And it was hard when I first, I wanted to do something like this for a long time, but I was like, no one's going to want to be on it. I'm going to get like 2 views.
Yeah.
So I think as of today, I think I have 99 or 98 followers right now,
Uh-huh.
which is, 99 more than I thought I would get on my YouTube channel. So hopefully over time that slowly grows. And the whole idea here is to, spread knowledge and get people to learn more about maybe some games or
Hmm.
some people, some collectors that they didn't know before, and connect people, right? So I have people who are on the show and then they tell me, hey, I got 20 new followers after I was on your show because people saw my account and they wanted to see more. So
Hmm.
that's mainly the goal here. Yeah, correct. Yep, got to be patient.
I think a lot of people tend to focus on like instant success, and it doesn't work
Mm,
that way.
sure.
It just takes, it takes, effort, genuine. Hell, excuse me. Heck, if you want me to, come back
That's
on the
right.
show again, hey, let me know. I got a whole lot of stuff that I can talk about. As long as the
Yeah,
platform is viable, hey man, it's cool.
that's awesome. No worries, man. I appreciate it. Well, we are running low on time here, so I do want to kind of wrap this up. But potentially, I could have you back on at a later time to talk about some more stuff.
Yeah,
But thanks a lot for coming on.
most
Thanks a lot for
definitely.
sharing your Zelda knowledge, Zelda things that you have. It's definitely a good learning experience. I hope everyone watching or listening enjoyed it. If you are listening, like I said on Spotify, go back and watch on YouTube because, again, many of these episodes, people like to show off things in their collection. So it's nice to see them instead of just hear about them. But all right, Supertendo.
It's all good, man.
Thanks a lot for coming on, man. And we'll catch you next time on the next episode of Video Game Collectors on Call.
All right.
Have a good one.
See you, Doc.